And hello, everyone, and welcome to this event in partnership with Syracuse University Whitman School of Management. My name is Stefania, and I will be moderating this webinar on behalf of Doxity. So I see here that our first participants have joined us, so a warm welcome to all of you. We're just going to wait a few minutes before we dive into our session to ensure that everyone has a chance to connect. In the meantime, please don't hesitate to say hi or introduce yourself in the chat that you can find here in Zoom. Because, we are kind of curious to know where are you joining us from. So please take a moment to share your location in the chat. And thank you for being here. We will start shortly. So in the meantime, I just wanted to inform you that we got a Q&A session lined up after the session. So this is your chance to ask your questions to our panelists. So don't be shy. Go ahead and type your questions and curiosities in the Q&A box. We will be thrilled to answer them. So also, if you're interested in receive the certificate of attendance issued by Doxity, please stay tuned because we will give you more information after the presentation. In today's webinar that is called Engineering to MBA, an Alumni Success Story, we will engage in a conversation with a Whitman MBA alumni that will share his experiences and personal backstory, as well as speak about his current role at Genpact. So I'm just going to take this time to remind you that this is the perfect time to start typing your questions and curiosities in the Q&A box, because after the session, I will read them out loud for you, and you will get a response by our panelists that are here today with us. So as you can see, I will not be alone. Here with me, there is Dr. Shri, Assistant Director, Graduate Recruitment at Syracuse University Whitman School of Management, and Ari, Alumni and now Manager and Business Consultant at Genpact, ready to answer to all your questions. So thank you for being part of this event, and thanks to all of you. And without further ado, I would say, let's get started. So Shri, the floor is yours.
Stefania, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be doing yet another webinar in collaboration with Doxity. So thanks for re-inviting us and having us here. These webinars are not only an opportunity for me to talk about the programs offered at the Whitman School of Management at Syracuse University, but it also gives me the opportunity to reconnect with my former students who are now very successful alumni in their own right. And it's one of these individuals that I wanted to bring onto this webinar today to share his story, because it's a very interesting trajectory. He comes from Southern India. Hari, good to see you. And thanks for agreeing to do this webinar. And so you're a little muted, I think.
Can you hear?
Is your volume? Try one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, perfect.
I was saying likewise.
So, yes. So it's great to have you. And so let's engage in our conversation, because I know I have curious questions after you graduated from Whitman, the interesting trajectory you went through. But I want to introduce for our audience, your background before you came to Whitman, and then sort of walk you through, what happened during your student life at Whitman and Syracuse University, and then move on from there into your professional career and where you have been. So Hari graduated back in 2016, so I'm very curious. So let's go back to pre-Whitman days and say, what's your background? So give us a little intro about yourself and walk us through that piece.
Yep, sure. Thank you, Shri, and thank you, Stefania. I am Hari. Like Shri said, I am currently based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, here in the US. I am originally from India. I am from the southern part of the country, from a city called Hyderabad. And I did my undergrad in computer science and engineering. I started my journey from the computer science background, and then I started my career with a company called Untold Global Solutions. I worked in a space where I was managing customizations for technical and product-based solutions for different companies in supply chain management and warehouse management. And then I learned a bit of the functional aspects of supply chain management as well. And that's where I kind of grew my first interest in this space of supply chain. And yeah, that was my 4 years leading into Whitman School of Management when I decided to do an MBA.
Okay, hang on. So let's go back to, you introduced a lot of different things in there. So your initial interest with engineering, when you first set out to pursue your computer science engineering specialization, what was the initial thought behind that? Like, what type of a career did you envision for yourself at that point to go into, that trajectory before you decided, I think I want to move into management?
Yeah, no, I think engineering was probably a choice of like default option what I had to pick back in India, where obviously everybody's choice at coming out of high school was like you pick engineering because that's the easiest choice for everybody to grow a career on. And so, but then I personally had an interest in computer science because as I grew up, my uncle had exposed me to uh, an IT environment and showed me how technology was actually booming at that point in time. I'm a millennial, so I'm old at this point, and I knew how things were like budding in the technology space. But then that's why I kind of chose the option of choosing an engineering career in computer science and technology. But that experience actually taught me a lot in terms of figuring out how can I actually structure my engineering mindset into more of the management space as well.
Okay, that's great. So when you were done with engineering, you graduated, and of course, your first company that you talked about, that you began your professional career with, and you said you got introduced to the functional aspects of supply chain with them. So what did you initially start out as, and how did you grow in the company? Because I believe you said 4 years that you were with the company.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how did you start out? Was it in purely computer science related designation or responsibilities and day-to-day functions? And then did you just grow into leaning towards supply chain, like sort of through your own interest, but also through opportunities within the company?
Yeah.
So talk us through a little bit.
Yeah, so actually, my first year of work experience, I worked in a totally different space for customer relationship management. But somewhere after the first year, they said, there is this growing trend in the industry with supply chain and operations. And Infor, the company which I was working on, the first company, put me into working on this tool, the product which various large scale MNCs and logistics companies were actually using for their management systems. And that's where they called it supply chain management system and operations management systems. But as I did my undergrad in computer science and engineering, I knew that I wanted to probably build my career in the operations management space along with the technology experience what I had. So I really wanted to see, and I thought this was the best opportunity because they were putting me into working on this tool, which would really give me an exposure to getting my first, exposure and kind of hands-on experience in working with a tool which combines both operations and technology. So I was like, I will do it totally out of my pure interest in learning about the space. And I was lucky enough to actually get that exposure because that really gave me the head wind into learning all the different areas. And then it actually propelled me into exploring what all I can do within the supply chain space.
That's great. So one reason why I was digging deep into understanding this initial interest is sometimes when I talk with students, they tend to forget that their prior experience can also assist them with the MBA, and it just builds on. You don't ever miss out on anything that you've learned before, and it's never a waste. And in some ways, it ties in with your MBA, whether it's through even the fact that you talked about your customer relationship experience in your first year with your consulting experience now, there's that conversation which adds to it. And so we'll come back and touch upon it because I want to also tie it in with some other things that you did at Whitman. So So I think it's important to sort of talk about these pieces and recognize that everything, all the dots connect,
Yep.
right? And so, okay, so let's move on to, you have now graduated from your 4 years of your work ex, and then you decided to pursue your MBA. So how did you find Syracuse and how did you end up at Whitman?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a journey. I obviously had to do my GMAT first, and to get my GMAT experience, I had to work for 3 years. That's obviously a criteria for most of the B schools in the US. And so I did my GMAT, and then as I was exploring all the universities across US where I wanted to do my B school, I obviously explored more than a few universities, but Syracuse particularly kind of like stood out for me with I think I would say three main aspects of why I had to pick Whitman at that point in time when I had to decide on the university was Syracuse has a very good blend of supply chain courses along with the analytics courses. So, analytics obviously has a very strong correlation with the technology background what I had. And the moment I heard that, Syracuse courses in Whitman School of Management actually has the opportunity to actually combine different sets of courses from not just Whitman, but also the sister, schools within Syracuse University. I was really excited in getting onto that opportunity of picking Whitman School. And the second thing was the opportunity to do experiential learning. I think to some of you who might have not heard, experiential learning is the opportunity to combine your projects, your courses with certain like mini projects you can do with companies who partner with Syracuse to actually improve their supply chain or operations. So you can actually, while doing your course, partner with some of these companies and actually do a practice of your learnings. That was one second big reason. And obviously the third big reason is the opportunity to actually, do a 2-year MBA was one of my key interests as well, because I wanted to take the opportunity to take the learnings from my first year, put it into practice in an internship in a real work environment, and then bring that experience back into my second year and share my knowledge with fellow students to see how our learnings from B school in the first year really actually is implemented or kind of like practiced in the real world environment.
That's great. So that actually dovetails nicely with my next question about like speaking about your internship opportunity. And you were one of the few students who came into the program stating, I want to pursue supply chain or with a specialization focus. Because sometimes I see students who come in with an initial understanding of what they think they are interested in only because that's the only space they've had experience in prior. And then they recognize, oh, I don't need to necessarily lock myself into that specialization. I can expand. But you came in saying, I did engineering, I have the supply chain functional experience, and I want to learn supply chain and I want to stay with supply chain. And so that was great that it worked out for you. And of course, as you know, Syracuse's first specialization at Whitman was supply chain management and continues to remain as one of the main offerings. So walk us through, yes, you're right about the experiential learning component that has actually evolved into a much more robust offering now than it was at that time. And students can participate in them, not just in projects, but also through competitions, through other, projects that are not necessarily tied to credit as well. But that is an important component at Whitman. So let's talk about how that prepared you with your initial coursework and how you prepared for your internship. And I want you to spend a little bit of time on this because I know personally that you went through multiple rounds of interviews for this internship. So walk us through where was your first internship and how you prepared for it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think I wanted to make sure again through my internship, I'm kind of getting the right experience, what I really wanted to get out of my 2 months of internship during the summer. And I obviously interviewed with a few companies, but I was fortunate to actually get an offer with Amazon. I had a couple of offers from three different companies, but I picked Amazon obviously because they were really pushing in terms of how they wanted to leverage their supply chain, and they're regarded quite high in terms of their practices with supply chain. So I felt like that's probably my best opportunity to really take all the learnings from my first year of B school, and I wanted to really test myself to figure out, yes, people regard this company to be the best in supply chain. What really happens in that space, and why is it such a competitive leader in supply chain solutions for not just US but across the world. So I went into the space really with the mindset of figuring out, okay, I really want to test my knowledge of my first year in B school, and also kind of give a best shot at converting that internship into a full-time experience as well, because that was something which was at stake as well. When they offered the internship, they said, if you obviously do this well, you have a shot at converting this into a full-time opportunity as well. So there was more than a few things at stake when I started the internship, but I was also at the mindset that, even if I don't convert into internship, I am getting a great experience in putting my first year of learning into practice. So all the courses, luckily, one other thing which I kind of, as I was applying for my internship, I wanted to pick courses during my first year in the second semester, that when I knew that, if I'm getting an internship in the supply chain space, I'd rather pick certain courses which might really help during my second semester, the spring semester, which will actually help me into the summer, and then put some of the other courses to the second year.
Yeah, that's great. So, so let's go back again to a little bit during the second semester, because part of it was preparation through your coursework, and then recognizing, which type of company you wanted to be associated with in the form of an internship. But that was also operating in the supply chain space, right? Like, so with these parameters, you were doing that. But then there is a side to interviewing and also job functionality that is not usually talked about in terms of credit. And that is the soft skills. And I know that you participated in student clubs at Whitman. So let's talk about that aspect. Because as the advantage of being a recruiter who remembers their students is, I know what you were like when you first came into the program. I saw how you evolved through the program, and now it's a joy for me to see where you're at and follow your trajectory after graduation, right? So talk a little bit about the way you focused, because I know you did a very different approach. As opposed to just talking to people, you focused very clearly through the student club. So let's hear about that.
Yeah, I think one thing I did forget to mention earlier, on why I picked Syracuse was I knew that, Syracuse as a university, not just within Whitman, but across the university, we have different clubs. Not There are a few clubs which are solely focused on sharing supply chain practices. They have several like memorial sessions and seminars where they partner and bring in experts from industries and different companies to actually come and speak about supply chain in general, their operations in general. And there are different kinds of clubs for marketing, for entrepreneurship, and various different fields of expertise. So I knew this actually while coming into Syracuse, that while an MBA degree is an MBA degree for learning the management side of things, but one thing which will make people stand out is when you get involved in the supply chain clubs. There's also a Toastmaster club which actually helps you improve your soft skills and improve your communication skills, especially for people who are coming from non like traditional English speaking background. It would really help students and budding management students to actually bring out their soft skills or improve on their soft skills, and combine that with obviously with your management degree, because obviously management, one big component is communicating more effectively. And so I knew in my first year itself that if I actually get involved in being part of these clubs and improving both my soft skills and my getting my exposure into these seminars and sessions with industry experts, I can actually speak about that during my internship interview experiences, because it would actually showcase that I have expressed interest in learning things outside of what I'm doing in my B school to actually bring in industry experience, industry thoughts into my interview conversations as well.
That's great. Yeah. So how many interviews did you have with Amazon for your internship?
7 rounds, yes.
7 rounds of interviews. Okay. For people who are watching, it's not as easy as saying submitting an application and then saying like, hey, okay, I'm available for an interview, right? So 7 rounds of interviews with Amazon. And I remember how you were when you came into the program. You were one of the shy students, I will say. So to see you today and agree to openly do this public speaking, this webinar, it's a huge growth, not just personally for yourself, but also professionally. And it has tied in, and I think it started with your participation in Toastmasters because you used that towards your interview preparation, and you did great at Amazon. Of course, so tell us a little bit about what your internship responsibilities at Amazon were.
Yeah. So in my internship, basically, they had just laid out a project for every intern who was coming in, and
Mhm.
the scope was pretty clear in the sense that we just have to obviously execute the project well enough, build enough relationship with the company to actually uh, explain that the project was worthwhile implementing, and explain the benefits out of coming out of the project, and show that it can really be scaled in an environment like Amazon. And so the scope was pretty clear in the fact that you deliver a successful project. And in Amazon particularly, there's a thing called white paper where you actually explain the project in front of an audience of 20 like VPs, and you really have to convince them that the 2 months of rigorous work what you have put in actually makes sense to what they really think can be done. So it was some experience sitting in front of VPs and telling them that, hey, this is the work I've done, this is why it's worthwhile, this is why I think it can be implemented, and I guess to say this is why I deserve a full-time opportunity back. So
very subtly introduce that in there as well.
sneak that in and say it, because I think it was my one shot to like not do a second round of interviews again.
Right.
So I was like, I go big or go home. So yeah.
That's great. So how long did you stay with Amazon when you converted the offer?
So in my full time, I was with them for about close to 2.5, 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And then after that, you moved from there to Target?
Yep.
Yeah. So what was your motivation to move to Target? Well, in the sense like with the job, what type of role did you have, and how was it, like a little different or similar, advancement? What was it? Talk to us.
Yeah. So my first 3 years at Amazon was more in the operation side of things. So it was one supply chain, as some of you might know, is a very vast field. And one other thing which I really wanted to kind of build during my first 5 to 10 years of work experience was trying to get a lay of different areas of supply chain. So when I speak in different meetings across leaders in different areas of supply chain, I'm able to actually have the conversation in their language and actually show them that this is what happens in operations, this is what happens in logistics, and this is what happens in like more of the corporate side world of supply chain planning and things of that sort. So I, at that point when I worked for 3 years in Amazon, I felt like it's time for me to actually learn more of the other side of supply chain and learn some of the different areas. And Target, for some of you who might know who are in the US, is one of the largest retail companies in the US. And during 2019, they actually were growing in their digital side of business, and they really wanted somebody who can scale their digital business. And of course, COVID happened in 2020, and the digital business in Target grew like 100x, and they really wanted. I mean, it so happened that I was put in a place where I had to expand the team, but I was kind of forced to expand the team because we
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
just meet toilet paper demand.
that's
in,
true. That did happen during COVID, but
in the
okay.
first, in the first few years, and so that I was again maybe like the fortune kind of fell in place with the learning experience, but because I put myself out there in trying to learn a different area of supply chain within Target.
Mhm. That's great. And so now you have experience, and I see there is actually a question in the Q&A about what was your experience like working with Amazon. So tie it in with how you felt in terms of your experience working with Amazon, because at that time you also came in with 4 years of experience in a different country, right? And getting introduced to supply chain areas when you didn't have content knowledge. Then you have content knowledge, you gain the theoretical aspects, and this is your first job, and it's with a giant in supply chain. And so what was that experience like? And then also tie it in with your experience with Target and also operating during COVID.
Yeah, I think Amazon as a company, it can feel overwhelming because they have really huge goals and they have really fast-paced goals. So they're like, 2 days, 1 day, how 1 hour, all this stuff, right? So they keep pushing in terms of where they want to deliver their services to clients. And so it was an environment which initially got overwhelming because of the pressure of delivering solutions and improvements. But I kind of knew that I had the support structure. I had a mentor. I had different leaders who could actually help me navigate this side of supply chain where I'm actually doing more of the management side of things. And it also, one of the key aspects was also dealing with people, because being in operations, one of the
Mhm.
major areas is working with different kinds of peoples and getting their buy-in, getting their consensus on actually implementing a certain solution. So what do you learn in B school? Again, coming back to the Toastmaster experience, you have to actually build a structure, build a story around why you want a supply chain process to be implemented or things of that sort. So bringing in that soft skills, bringing in your technical knowledge from your B school learnings, and bringing in your aspects of why you see a vision for a company and how it needs to be scaled. Like, one good thing about Amazon was they are always open to solutions or new innovations. And so if you have an idea, if you have a solution where you can see that a process or something would change for good and they would see a good return on investment, and if you're able to sell that story well, they would really buy into it. So it was bringing in all those soft skills of explaining the story, explaining the why, with your educate with your courses and your knowledge content, what you have learned from your B school. And also, like I said, trying to keeping yourself open to actually learning industry trends, industry knowledge was all a key aspect of kind of like growing initially in my first year of a management environment.
This is actually an interesting point, an important point. I want to emphasize it again for prospective students, because sometimes once they get into business school, everybody gets so bogged down by exams and midterms and assignments and focused on GPA and oh my God, I have to get 4.0 out of 4.0, and that's the only focus, that they tend to forget that once they graduate and they go into the workplace, no one's going to ask them their report card and say, which grade did you actually get in this particular course? But they're going to potentially present you with a business challenge that draws from your experience with that course.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
If
more applied knowledge as opposed to just GPA focus.
Yeah, and if I can add one good point there, Shri, is like, yes, GPA is important, but it's not the only which matters for large scale companies, whether it's Amazon, Target, and stuff, because they really value varied experiences. Like for my group of 100 MBAs who joined in 2016 along with me in my first batch with Amazon, we had, you won't believe, people in the marine environment, people who were nurses, people who were like military graduates, who were like in all different, like I was, as an engineer, I was actually feeling a minority because there were so many people. And
That's
I'm saying
great.
because people who are in India probably know that engineers are majority in most of the
Yeah,
places.
yeah.
It was, I feel like, and it put me at ease as well, because I could talk anything with anybody, because I could connect with somebody who's been in marine environment, somebody been in a military environment, and have learned something in their own B schools about how supply chain should be done, how management best practices should be implemented, and things of that sort, without having this common base knowledge of everybody's an engineer or everybody is having a shared background, which actually brings in a lot of the diversity of thoughts.
That's great. That's great. So let's step back a little bit from your job experiences, because I want to tie it in back to what you're doing with Genpact. But let's take a step back from Target and let's talk about some of the professional memberships. Are you still involved in professional organizations? Because I know you mentioned Apex, and I know you were active in the student clubs at Whitman. But did you continue with that? What are you doing with your professional memberships?
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, my interest in being part of a professional club in Whitman was obviously to learn the trends and get involved with finding opportunities to speak to industry leaders who were actually coming down to Whitman at that point. But I knew that going into the workforce as well, if I keep these connections with professional clubs, actually, it would actually help me connect with other professionals in the supply chain space and actually learn, again, use that as an opportunity to connect and network with professionals in the same space. And so there are two like organizations in the US. One is called CSCMP, Certified Supply Chain Management Professionals. Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. And there is
Okay.
ASCM. Apex is now ASCM, by the way. So it's Association of
Okay.
Supply Chain Management Professionals. So these two, I actually became like the VP for the Twin Cities in Minneapolis for the CSCMP chapter here in Minneapolis. And it has been actually a great partnership and learning experience from like cohorts and professionals who are in different kinds of industries, but obviously are involved in supply chain and operations practices. And by being part of that, again, it's just helped me connect and evolve and grow and learn from people in different spaces.
That's great. And if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right, you were also VP in the Toastmasters Club.
I was, yes. So I think
VP Communications, if I'm not mistaken.
VP of membership, I think, yes.
Membership. Okay. All right. But hey, you were still VP and now you're continuing with another VP position with your current professional membership. That's great. So let's tie in all of these experiences, and because your role at Genpact is almost more overarching and strategy driven compared to the functional operations, nitty-gritty kind of stuff from where you started, if I'm understanding correctly. So I think it takes you into not just your strategy courses at Whitman, but also your overarching communication experience as it evolved throughout, from your club days to your interviewing, and then your ability to network, liaise with departments in Amazon, Target, and then now you're consulting. So you're actually in a much higher overarching position than looking into, you're outside the microscope now.
Yeah, no, I think
so talk to us about that.
So typically, like, traditionally people have always thought that, after MBA, I go into consulting environment, then come into the industry. So Amazon, Target, obviously the industry. People kind of take the other direction. I'll start with consulting because people say it's like, 1 year in sorry, 2 years in industry is like 1 year in consulting. You actually learn so much because you're actually bringing in solutions for not just one client. You're working with 10 different clients throughout the year or whatever. But I kind of took the other direction, not by choice, but more so in the fact that I got a chance to learn the industry side of things. But then it's just been 1 year since I've joined Genpact. When I realized that I have learned enough of the industry space, now I really want to translate this into more of the practices in a consulting space. Again, to your point, like consulting is a environment where you are considered the expert. You are supposed to know everything what happens in an industry, in this space, and so they obviously leveraged my experience in retail, but they saw that I could also add value through my supply chain in different industries. So one other factor which really kind of like prompted me to apply for a role in Genpact was the fact that yes, I have gained an experience in the retail industry. Now taking one step above, the fact that I have learned different areas of supply chain within retail, but I've only worked in the retail space. Now I really want to maybe work with the manufacturing, semiconductor, and other different industries, and also in a consulting space where I can actually bring that knowledge into a consulting environment. So yeah, I felt it's the right choice for me to kind of, to your point, culminate all that experiences into a consulting world.
Yeah, it's sort of like things aligned for you in a certain way, which was not necessarily what is the stereotypical thinking that would come out, I think. So I think it's important would you agree that it's important to sort of not only take what you're reading about or hearing about general advice in forming your path, but also being a little intuitive and recognizing certain things that work best for you?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and I think I said this before, is I really wanted to explore all the different areas. And I think my advice, which I keep giving to all my mentees who were in Target or Amazon or now in Genpact, I'm mentoring few of the younger graduates who are passing out their undergrad. I tell them, don't actually fear putting yourself out in different areas of supply chain, because that's the best way you can learn in your first 10 to 15 years of experiences. And once you settle down, you will then realize that I really want to focus on this one area of supply chain or this one area of operations. And you will have the comfort zone of, yes, being able to talk to different leaders or different areas in supply chain, but you'll also build an expertise as you grow into a career.
That's great. So I think with that, we've kind of covered most of our idea about or concept for today's webinar, what we wanted to sort of share, because I wanted to bring in that side of, what your pre-MBA experience was, and then once you came into the MBA and what you have taken out of graduation, and then where you've taken it in your career, right? So I think we've covered that. So now let's spend like maybe a couple of minutes on understanding who is Hari as a person. So what do you do outside of supply chain? You did not expect this because I did not tell you about this.
wasn't what I was prepared for, but I love music. I have always been involved in music in one way or the other. I have a keyboard at my house, so even last night I was just like jamming something just to get my mind out of work. And
now, did you have a keyboard when you were at Whitman?
I did, but I don't think I got enough time to actually sit on it.
No, the reason I'm asking that is because this is something I inform students and I talk to students about, and I say you should always have an outlet to manage your stress, right? Like, so it's work-life balance is one thing, but
I was actually part of all the cultural committees as well. So
with the WTSO, the Whitman Grad Student Organization,
the annual cultural meet and things of that sort.
The
I was
talent show, and then yeah, additional things. But yeah, so go ahead. So you are still into music. I recognize, I'm sorry, I remember the very first year that you had started at Whitman, you had participated in the talent show, and I think you had sung a song.
I did have we had a good blend of Indian fusion with Western fusion. So yeah.
So that was one. And then so what else do you do other than
Uh,
music?
I mean, of course, with my time in the professional clubs, once a week or once in 2 weeks, I get involved in that. I am actually I'm a foodie too, so I actually love to explore different cuisines. And yeah, I guess it's just I'm married now, so it's been a year and a half.
Congratulations.
So I consider that my biggest achievement. I have been married, so that's keeping me busy, spending time with my wife, and yeah.
And that's important, isn't it? As you are evolving in different stages of life, you don't just get bogged down by being a student and just getting into a job and then think that's your entire life. But then you want to find that work-life balance in every aspect of your life for personal and professional satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, the outlets are very important. It could be different, obviously, for different people, whatever interests you, but there should be it's not work-life balance. I've heard this term called work-life harmony. So,
Yes.
when you're happy in one of the areas, you're definitely happy in the other areas. So
That's great. That's great. So, okay, with that, I'm actually going to open it up to some of the Q&A. Stefania, do you want to come back?
Yes, so here I am. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was really interesting to listen. So now we got a few questions, so let's read them.
And I
The
know I took
first
a
one,
couple of them off of
yeah,
your Q&A and built it into the conversation because I thought it was very relevant. So
yeah, I
great.
saw it's amazing. It was perfectly blended. So let's go now with first, maybe a few of them. We can repeat them, but I mean, for now, we go with this. Carlos is asking, do you offer stage opportunities for the MBA?
Do we offer what opportunities? Sorry.
I guess that it's talking about internships.
Okay. So for the MBA at Whitman, we recommend very strongly that students complete a summer internship between years 1 and 2 of the MBA. So the students sometimes, depending on, like for Hari, for instance, he was a supply chain specialist, and so he chose the internship opportunity. Sometimes if you choose entrepreneurship as your specialization, you can pursue the internship route, or you can choose to use the 3 months to build on your own company idea or startup venture and go that way as well. But I think doing an internship, just from Hari's experience, I think you will see it's extremely valuable, especially for people who come from another country to the US, because you want to not just have the outside the US experience, but also within the US business experience. Because Hari, can you talk a little bit very quickly on what the difference was with that? Your work experience in a different country back home, and then the culture, just the business culture. And that'll, I think, help people understand why an internship would be helpful.
yeah, I think and the environment where I was coming was from a space where most of them were like-minded in the same computer science background, who were working on a same kind of project. So the diversity of knowledge wasn't really there. But it didn't really matter, because obviously I was learning, everybody along with me was learning, who were fresh undergrads. So we were just trying to wet our feet on learning the different products what we were working on. But the first experience with my internship in Amazon really helped me diversify my thoughts, really think in terms of a broader, like, a large scale environment for a large multinational company. How do I really structure my conversations? How do I really work with diverse people who have varied thoughts? Like I said, people were from all different backgrounds, so you don't really talk the engineering language with everybody. You talk management language, you talk like business language with different kinds of people. So I feel that's the biggest kind of difference what I saw in my working environments.
And you also culturally found different people, which ties in with somewhat from your Whitman experience, because you had students from other cultures as well, but that is at a much larger level during your internship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
for a lot of people, like even coming to the B school and actually doing the first year of MBA is itself an experience of
is an
having a
experience, yeah,
worldly culture and
because it's your
experience, like
first
having
time away from
conversations.
home, and yeah, great. So Stefania, I hope that
Yeah.
answers gives
And
a
it's fun
well-rounded
because
answer.
Yes.
everybody
Good.
fun because obviously every student is coming from different parts of the world, and you're eager to learn their experiences just as eager as they are to learn your backgrounds and culture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's always interesting to be in an international environment. I mean, it helps also with soft skills and everything. So
Exactly.
yeah, okay. So we got another question for you, Ari. This is really interesting. And it is, being an MBA holder, what advice do you have for those wanting to pursue it by staying focused?
what was the last part again, Stephanie?
It's like if you have an advice to pursue an MBA, but at the same time being focused, like on the career and also on the university path.
Yeah, I think people have different like choices on why they actually want to do an MBA. I think for me, it was I had decided coming out of my undergrad that I'm not good at the technical side of things. Like even though I'm a computer science engineer, like the engineer, I guess, is just to build my mind, not the solutions coming out of it. I guess it's I was not an expert in the technical side of things. I really wanted to use that more to manage a large scale business. So um, I wanted to structure my career. Yes, there is a question for a lot of people, like how do I manage my career interest with doing a B school? But an MBA and B school really actually kind of accelerates where you actually want to take your experience in building your career. So you can, like to Shree's point, while doing an internship actually will give you that experience of like, hey, this is the experience I have gained in my first 3 4 5 years, and this is the B school experience I'm gaining because I want to learn and build a management career. But doing that internship actually then accelerates your knowledge, your experience, and then even coming out of B school, like your value as a professional on how to manage large scale business decisions is really like 10x coming out of the B school. So you're while there's a path you can take in building your career without an MBA, but you just realize that it just accelerates your growth, learning, everything.
And I think biggest thing just to add to that is also exposure. There are obviously ways, and the pandemic has shown us this, that you can do a lot of things virtually, you can do a lot of things through your own learning. But then when you find yourself in a situation where, for some people, it's accountability, isn't it? That I have this accountability that I am going to class physically every day in this location, that will force you into this time is not negotiable for anything else. But sometimes if you don't have that accountability, that time can slide off very easily into answering extra emails or doing other things. Case in point, trying to learn French online while answering emails, not a good idea, working for me. So I think that's one. The second piece also is, what type of a learner are you? Right. So there are some people who will just read books and learn that way. And it's not to say that you cannot get to what you want to do without an MBA or just learning concepts about the MBA. But I think truly getting the degree, investing in yourself, and going through the structured curriculum with the flexibility that it offers, and then pursuing the internship, like Hari said, accelerates your growth quite a bit. And so what you might want to accomplish in 10 years, you probably are truncating it into a much faster time frame. So ultimately, the choice does come down subjectively to what an individual wants and their motivation for it. And then, of course, there are those people who I encounter who say, I just want an MBA because I've always wanted one. Why not? So.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And also, we got different questions related to if it is expensive to live in New York and if you provide accommodation or help in finding the house.
Okay, so Syracuse is located in what is known as upstate New York or central New York. I'll let Hari speak to his student life experience a little bit over there about the beauty of the place. But specifically with the university, we are not located in New York City, which is something I want to clarify because sometimes people get confused that, you know, the city is also called New York and the state is New York. We are in the state of New York in upstate New York. So accommodation, the school does not provide accommodation, but there is actually from the time of Hari's graduation to now, there is a little bit of graduate housing available, which could be on south side of campus, but there are a lot of apartment complexes around the university. And the school is located on the north side of campus, North End. So there are a lot more newer apartment complexes now, and students tend to share accommodation. So either they might take a one bedroom or a studio apartment for themselves, or they might share with, you know, 2 or 3 other students in a larger 3-bedroom apartment where you have common spaces that you share, like the kitchen or the living room, and but you have your own bedroom and you might have your own bathroom, right? So depending on the type of accommodation that you choose, your cost obviously will vary accordingly. And then most places do include shared utilities as well. So it does help bring down the cost when you are in a sharing space that way. Hari, do you want to add anything? Does it bring back wonderful memories?
Yeah, no, yeah, to your point, shared accommodation with 3 other folks who were in my B school. So it's fun because obviously you're sharing accommodation, you're sharing new responsibilities for people like me who are born and brought up with family around mom, around feeding you. So you start to learn how to cook, and you also start to learn how to manage your own life, right? So uh, yeah, it's not, yeah, to Shree's point, the best part of Syracuse is it is in New York, so it actually gives you the accessibility to go to New York and maybe explore some of the, companies or the culture and everything else within New York, but it's also 4 hours away from New York. So you actually, the expenses of New York don't really kind of like shadow Syracuse. So it's good city, and it's a wonderful place. I definitely miss Syracuse. Yes.
Yeah. Closer to Niagara Falls. I mean, of course, 2 hours away, but I think the benefits of Syracuse, I've been here for 10 years. Of course, change in climate, that's another thing for people who've never experienced snow or cold weather. You do have activities for that. You also do have the conducive learning environment, I would say, because you don't have that much distraction as you do in New York City when you're smack in the center of Manhattan, probably.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, Amazon actually built its largest operation center in Syracuse, like I think last year or sometime this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So that's another thing. So it's Q's does have its benefits, even though at first glance it might seem like, do I really want to go to Syracuse when I'm in New York? Yes, you do. There are various reasons why,
Oh, yeah.
and now Micron has come in to Syracuse as well, the chip manufacturer. And so there are a lot of, so when you're talking about tying it in with, accommodation, I know that was the question, but when you're thinking about accommodation, when big companies are coming in, accommodation grows. Opportunities for that grows. There are opportunities with companies coming in when internship opportunities grow in partnership and collaboration with the university. So talks are happening about that, right? So there is a lot more growth, and when the city itself is growing, for the student population also, it's a wonderful place to be in to experience that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you both. And let's go with another question for Ari. What key skills or strategies do you think are most valuable for your success in MBA?
Yeah, I think it starts, I think Shri mentioned this a little bit, GPA is not the only focus. Yes, you really want to get a decent GPA, and I'm the kind of an example of that. Like, I'm not a 4.0.
Well, you don't want to get a GPA that's going to tank you completely, but you want to,
you don't want to be at two, you don't want to 2.0 either. So, but you want to maintain that good level of GPA, which will actually show that you have expressed enough interest in learning the different courses, but you also want to, more importantly, build yourself completely as a professional. And when I say completely as a professional, GPA is one pie of it, one part of the pie. The soft skills is big part of the pie, and your ability to actually understand the industry you want to go into, whether it's or the kind of environment you want to go into. For me, it was supply chain. So, being part of those professional clubs, learning from other peers through these seminars and other like memo sessions which are conducted in these clubs, and learning from other students, and being part of like case study practices in person, and sitting in a group, and getting their thoughts, and questioning each other on like, why would you think this way, why would you think the other way, and doing that in person, and entirely building that pie of like good GPA, excellent soft skills, learning from your environment, learning from the industry experts by being part of these clubs. I think those are like the three main components of the pie.
So I want to sort of bring you back to a little bit on that. You already came in with quantitative skills, because you were an engineer, obviously. So, but do you think having a little bit of that, and potentially you also did Excel, right? Excel. Did you do the Excel certification per se at Whitman, or did you already have it?
So, Whitman does have a quick 2-3 month course, which you can just do it on the side, like 30 minutes. And I was able to just quickly add a Excel certification to my resume, which helped during my internship too, because my internship was mainly in Excel. So those are some of the things.
So the quantitative skills also do help. Yeah.
So you don't have to be an expert in math or expert in statistics coming into the B school, but you will definitely, like, a little bit of quant knowledge will help, and you will obviously develop that during the B school as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so as a final question, let's keep this focus on the resume and curriculum, because also our students ask if you can give us some advices in creating the curriculum, and also if you have to send a cover letter to the university for the application.
So the application procedures are listed on the website. It's not just the cover letter. There's an actual application that you have to complete. And there are additional materials that you have to submit along with the online application. So you would have to, there's an entire application checklist. So you would have to give us unofficial copies of your transcripts. If you've taken the GMAT or GRE, we need official score reports. If you're an international student from a non-English native speaking country, then you would have to give us English proficiency scores. You would have to give us a business resume. There is an essay question that you would have to answer. So it's not as simple as writing a cover letter and saying, hey, I would like to be applying to your university, and can I start your program? So there is like a whole checklist. So please go through it very carefully. And if you have additional questions, you can contact us with the generic email address, which I will give you in the chat box here, which will go to our generic mailbox, and you can request additional information from there. So it's busgrad@syr.edu, but do go to the Whitman website, which also I will provide here, so that you can take a look at all the different programs that we offer, not just the MBA, but also the specialized master's programs, and see which might be a better fit for you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're done with the questions. Thanks again to our panelists to be with us today, and thanks to everyone to have joined us in this session, to have been so curious and responsive with all your questions also. And I hope you learned a lot and that this webinar helped you to discover more about Syracuse University. So if you're interested in receive our certificate of attendance, you can click in the link that I'm sending right now in the chat. Here you have it. And also keep in mind that we will share the recording with you in the following days, so check your email. I would also ask our panelists if you want to leave a final message before say goodbye to our students.
Yeah, as always, it's a pleasure. Stefania, thanks for inviting me again to, participate in another webinar. I love these collaborations. It not only helps, as I said, share information about the school, but also hear about our guests' perspectives, right? So, Hari, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I know I didn't give you a lot of notice before I invited you to join me on this session, but I really appreciate you coming back. And I know you have said this multiple times. You love your school, so it's thanks so much for all that you do.
Thank you so much.
So,
And it was
do you want to add anything?
No, just pleasure talking to you all, and it was fun meeting you as well, Stephanie.
It was a pleasure for
Great.
me too. So thanks again, everyone. And I hope to see you again in the next webinar in partnership with Syracuse University. So it was a pleasure. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.